The very first Wipeout game was developed and published by Psygnosis. It was the first game in the series and was originally released on the PlayStation and PCs running MS-DOS in 1995, and for the Sega Saturn the following year. It was also a launch title for the PlayStation in Europe and North America. Set in the year 2052, players compete in the F3 600 Anti-Gravity Racing League, piloting one of the selection of craft and races on several different tracks around the world. Wipeout featured music from well-known electronic artists such as Leftfield, The Chemical Brothers and Orbital. A prototype version of the game appeared in the teen cult movie Hackers 1995, which is still one of my favourites to this day, in which both protagonists were playing the game in a nightclub. A marketing campaign created and launched by Keith Hopwood and graphic design studio The Designers Republic included an infamous promotional poster featuring a bloodied or blood-stained Radio 1 DJ Sarah Cox, which was speculated by some of representing a drug overdose. On a personal level, the original Wipeout game is my favourite due to the fact that it has so many cool soundtracks within it. I first played this game on the Sega Saturn back in the day. Years and years later, I would go on to 3D print my own toys of the Wipeout craft and tracks, as you can see here. Then after that, I will go up a level and make a radio controlled version of it using 2 EDF fans. The craft was about a meter long. I'm still yet to finish it. Wipeout 2097, also known as Wipeout XL in North America, is the second game in the franchise and is a direct sequel to the original game. It was first released worldwide in 1996 for the PlayStation and for the Sega Saturn in the following year. Set in the year 2097, the game revolves around players racing in the F5000 Anti-Gravity Racing League. The game was first unveiled to the public in the form of a pre-alpha demo at the Electronic Entertainment Expo in May 1996. The soundtrack featured a wider array of high-profile electronic music artists. Tracks by The Prodigy, Fluke Underworld and Photek were included, alongside returning contributors Leftfield and The Chemical Brothers. Personally, Wipeout 2097 for me was my second best, as graphically it was more superior than the Sega Saturn, even though I am a Sega fan. Just everything about the second game was a lot cooler. I mean, the soundtracks went better, but obviously the gameplay was. Wipeout 64. This is the third installment of the series. It was released exclusively for the Nintendo 64 in November 1998 for North America and later in Europe in 1999. The game is set 1 year after the events of Wipeout 2097 and shares the same anti-gravity racing league. Wipeout 64 reuses most of the tracks featured in the previous games and mirrored layouts and different locations. On a personal level, Wipeout 64 was a 5 out of 10 for me due to the fact that the soundtracks absolutely sucked. Hats off to Nintendo for trying, but again it's the same old same old. Graphically it was better, but again the soundtracks let it down. Wipeout 3 is the fourth title in the franchise and was released in September 1999 for the PlayStation, where players race in the F72000 League. An enhanced edition entitled Wipeout 3 Special Edition was released exclusively in Europe on the 14th of July 2000, featuring minor changes to gameplay such as different craft physics, auto-loading of saves, and artificial intelligence or bug fixes. As with the first two games, Psygnosis once again hired the Designers Republic to assist in development. The Sheffield-based company, known for its underground techno album covers, provided visual candy to Wipeout 3's graphics, designing the game's icons, billboards and colour schemes. The game also featured music from Propellerheads, and with the Chemical Brothers and Orbital returning from the first Wipeout, Psygnosis selected DJ Sasha to serve as the game's music director. On a personal level, this version of Wipeout for me just has it all. Even though I will still rank it as number 3 on my list, it has many things going for it. The first one is the soundtracks are just mind-blowing. Awesome job there. The next one is the sound effects on their weaponry, and lastly is the cockpit view. In other words, when you're sitting inside of it, the first person view. You don't just see the track this time, you actually get to see the insides of the craft for the very first time. Wipeout Fusion is the 5th installment of the series and was first released on the PlayStation 2 in 2002. The game was the first to be developed by the newly renamed studio Liverpool. It is set in the year 2160 and revolves around players competing in the corrupt F9000 Anti-Gravity Racing League. After the success of the previous game, the development team wanted to target Wipeout Fusion at an older, savvier crowd by making it stand out from the F-Zero series. Wipeout Pure is the 6th game in the series and was released simultaneously with the launch of the PlayStation Portable in 2005. The game takes place in the year 2197, exactly 100 years after Wipeout 2097, and centers around players completing the FX300 Anti-Gravity Racing League. Development of the game started in August 2003 and lasted until early 2005. Throughout the production, the Liverpoolian studio created new user interfaces and other algorithms that helped speed up the development process in time for the PlayStation Portable's launch. The game was notable for showcasing the PlayStation Portable's graphical capabilities and marked the first time a Wipeout game featured downloadable content, an aspect which had the potential to draw in more revenue for Studio Liverpool.
Ready. Go.
Autopilot engaged. Disengaged. Command. Shield active.
Wipeout Pulse is the 7th installment and first released for the PlayStation Portable in 2007. A port for the PlayStation 2 was released extensively in Europe in June 2009, featuring enhanced graphics and all of the game's downloadable content. The game takes place 1 year after the events of Wipeout Pure and has players compete in the FX 400 Anti-Gravity Racing League. Development of the game was centered around focusing on the feedback left by fans of the previous game, with many fans complaining of Wipeout Pure's difficulty, thus prompting Studio Liverpool to improve on the aspects of where they had thought they had failed. The game features 16 licensed music tracks from techno artists such as Kraftwerk, DJ Fresh and Scream.
Five.
Build up.
3, 2, 1, go! Mines.
Wipeout HD is the 8th title in the franchise and is the first to be released on the PS3 or the PlayStation 3 via PlayStation Network worldwide in 2008. Although a retail version was later released exclusively in Europe that next year, a major expansion pack titled Wipeout HD Fury was released worldwide via the PlayStation Network in July 2009. This time, players compete in the FX 350 Anti-Gravity Racing League, set a year prior to the FX 400 League.
Perfect lap.
Featuring a handful of racetracks from Wipeout Pure and Wipeout Pulse, although all content has been upgraded to render 1080p, visuals in 60 frames per second. Wipeout 2048 is the ninth and final game in the series to be developed by Studio Liverpool prior to their closure in August 2012. The game was released as a launch title for the PlayStation Vita in early 2012 and centers around players competing in the first anti-gravity racing championships. It is set in the year 2048 and acts as a prequel to the first Wipeout game. Wipeout 2048 was developed alongside the PlayStation Vita console itself and acted as a testbed for the device when the staff of the Liverpoolian studio were given development kits for what was dubbed a next generation portable. A group was set up within the team to brainstorm ideas. Among these included the proposal of a touchscreen device, which was not yet conceived by Sony at the time, and 2 analog sticks. Both features eventually made it into the console. Wipeout 2D was released in 2013 on PlayStation Vita as part of the PlayStation Wipeout Omega Collection is a remaster of the previous 2 titles in the Wipeout series, which is Wipeout HD and Wipeout 2048. Wipeout HD itself contained content from the Wipeout Pure and Wipeout Pulse was developed by Clever Beans, also Epos Game Studios and XDev. Wipeout Omega Collection was released in June 2017. It was designed to be run at 1080p on the PlayStation 4 and 4K on the PlayStation 4 Pro, both at 60 frames per second.
Shield active. Mines. Do that record. Rockets. Shield active. Rockets. Mines. Final lap. Shield active. Shield active. Autopilot engaged.
Wipeout Merge, previously known as Wipeout Rush, was announced by publisher Rogue Games on September 16th, 2029 for the iOS and Android devices. The game initially soft launched in several regions throughout the late 2021 and launched in the United States in early 2022. The game featured over 60 ships from the series as well as full single player campaign. Unlike previous entries in the series, the gameplay consists of being a racing manager and timing and deployment of weapons during races.
3, 2, 1, go.
Ballistic NG, developed by Neognosis. This game was developed using the Unity engine. The Ballistic NG is not part of the Wipeout franchise. This can be obtained through Steam for PC. It has all the similar characteristics of Wipeout, including the craft, tracks, music, and sound effects. You can import just about anything from any other game and implement it into the PC version. On a personal level, if you are a Wipeout fan or veteran like I am, you will get your hands on Ballistic NG. It is a must for PC, especially with all the mods you can do. I went up one by obtaining some FPV goggles, first person view goggles that I use for my racing drone. I connected them to the PC and it just gives you more of a realistic feeling, although it's not virtual reality, it's just a fixed screen, but it still gives you the feeling of being inside the craft.
1, go!